is Wade from High Tech Legion, and this is the AZZA Genesis 9000 in white. The Genesis 9000 is a full tower case, weighing in at 36 pounds, and the exterior dimensions are 25.1 inches high, 9.8 inches wide, and 23.2 inches in depth. The features in this case are targeted at the high-end gamer and enthusiast crowd. As you can see, AZZA packages this in a stunning box with both of the case's colors displayed on the front here, and the two main features advertised on the front, the reverse ATX and the vertical air, which I will explain a little bit more about later. Looking at the front of the case, the exterior finish is a nice shiny white painted finish with blue trim that does light up with LEDs. We have 9 5¼ inch bays on the front here, 5 of which can be used for hard drive mounting. And you'll notice this panel on the front here, which comes off by removing these 2 thumb screws. This is for the front mounted power supply. This case does support dual power supplies. The manufacturer recommends that the power supply is mounted in the front for the best cooling. There also is a removable dust filter here that's pretty sturdy to keep the dust out. Looking at this side of the case, we have 2 120mm fans that are already mounted and room for a 230mm fan here, as well as a blue tinted side window looking into the lower half of the case. You'll also notice that this case is raised up a little bit for there to be room for airflow coming in on the bottom of the case and up through the case. Looking at the rear of the case, this is where things start to get interesting. We have our water cooling grommets here for on the top and the bottom. We have a 120mm fan here for rear exhaust, space for the bottom mount rear power supply, and the power plug that goes to the front mounted power supply. We also have a removable dust filter on the rear. You'll notice though that things look a little backwards because we have our expansion slots on the top and our motherboard bracket here on the bottom. Typically you would see the motherboard bracket up here and the expansion slots down here. That's one of the beautiful features about this case, is that you can mount it in reverse ATX where it's flipped and the graphics card is on top and the CPU will be on the bottom. This handle here is actually for flipping this entire tray around if you wanted to mount your hardware in the more typical fashion. Looking at the top of the case, we have the AZZA logo here. There are spots for 4 thumb screws because this whole top panel comes off. We have a nice finned design, which is designed to let the airflow come out and go towards the rear. And we have all our front panel connectors here, an eSATA port, 2 USB 2.0 ports, headphone jack, microphone jack, 2 USB 3.0 ports, our fan LED button, which allows us to turn the LEDs for the trim and the fans on or off, our power button, and a reset button. This blue trim here also lights up with blue LEDs when the system is powered on. Removing the top of the case here, we expose 2 230mm fans set up to exhaust air out the top of the case. We have to be careful taking this panel off because of all the wiring that goes to the front panel. It is all plugs though, so you can remove it if you need to, though I would suggest leaving it connected if at all possible. Now, if you'll notice with this case, the way the cooling is set up is in a vertical air configuration. The 2 bottom fans push air up through to the top of the 230mm fans to exhaust. The motherboard tray is also reversed, and the CPU cooler goes down on the bottom and your GPU will be on the top. The idea behind this is that it puts the hottest part of your system at the top near the exhaust so that the cooling is more efficient. Looking at the interior of the case, we can see that we have a lot of room to work with. This case supports XL ATX, E ATX, full ATX, and micro ATX motherboard installations. We have some stand-offs that are already installed in the case for any of those formats. Here, prevalent is the GPU bracket, designed to help support larger GPUs. It's fully adjustable, and you can remove it easily with 2 thumb screws on the back of the case for helping you install easier until you're ready to put the GPU in. On the bottom of the case, we have 2 120mm fans that have ductwork on them designed to push air up to the top of the case to be exhausted by those 2 230mm fans. To install the front power supply, you actually have to remove the ductwork off of this rear fan here and slide the power supply in to the front. If you were to install the rear power supply, you'd have to remove both of these fans. On the rear of the case, we have a 120mm fan for exhaust to help get rid of the heat. We have rubber grommets on the cable routing holes to help hide those cables. We have a large CPU cutout for easy heatsink installation. And the 5 1/4 inch bays are a nice toolless, quick click and snap type hold down. And we have 2 of the hard drive bays are a hot swappable type bay. You just connect your cabling into the back of here and you slide the tray out. Releasing this, we can mount our 2.5 inch or 3.5 inch drives in it and then slide it back into place. On the bottom here, if we remove these 2 fans, there's space for a 240mm liquid cooling radiator. On the top, there's space for a 480mm water cooling radiator, which is the largest that the industry makes, as well as space for an additional 120mm radiator if we remove this rear fan here. The 9 expansion slots all remove with thumb screws, and the blanks can easily be taken in or out. On the other side of the case here, we can see that we have a bunch of cabling that's already been pre-routed by AZZA, and it's all cinched down with zip ties that pop open. In fact, if we were to flip this tray around, we'd have to reroute all these cables to the other side of the case. What we have here is we have a USB 3.0 header, we have the HD audio connector, we have a SATA connector for the SATA port, USB 2.0 connector, Molex for the SATA port and also the LEDs, and it goes to some of the fans as well. Then we have our power switch, reset switch, hard drive LED, power LED. Here I'm going to show you how the motherboard tray actually flips to the standard ATX position. I've removed the 6 thumb screws on the rear of it and the 3 thumb screws here that hold the motherboard tray in place. After that, we can just pull this handle here. Just like that. It slides out. Flip it over. Slide it into the channel on the other side. And just replace your thumb screws. And now you have the case set up in a standard ATX with the CPU cooler on the top and the graphics cards on the bottom. Last, we have our accessory kit, which includes some zip ties to tie down the cables with, a set of rubber pads for the rear mounted power supply if you decide to use that. In the front, they're already there. 2 additional GPU bracket supports, our motherboard speaker, various screws, and a color manual.